The Marine base hearing room smelled of floor polish and old varnish, a mixture that clung to the air like tension itself. Fluorescent lights buzzed above rows of polished oak benches. The American flag hung motionless at the front, its colors sharp under the cold glow. Marines in dress uniforms filled the gallery seats, some leaning back with crossed arms, others craning forward to catch every word of the drama about to unfold. At the center of it all stood Jack Miller, 75 years old. His frame had thinned with age, but his back remained straight, the posture of a man who had once carried a pack through jungles and deserts without complaint. The dark blue jacket he wore was immaculate, buttons shining, medals neatly aligned on his chest, the silver star, the bronze star, a purple heart, and a row of ribbons that told stories most people would never know. A low rustle of whispers traveled across the gallery. "Those can't be real," a young corporal muttered, not bothering to hide the grin. "Guy probably bought 'em on eBay." A lance corporal beside him chuckled. "Yeah, look at him. Old man probably never left the States." The words reached Jack's ears. He heard everything. He simply clasped his hands behind his back and fixed his gaze on the raised table where the review board sat. His face betrayed nothing. At the center of that table was Major William Davis, silver-haired and broad-shouldered, his uniform as precise as his reputation for cutting through excuses. To Davis's right sat Captain Ryan Cole, 30-something and sharp as a bayonet. Cole had a stack of folders arranged like ammunition, each tab a potential round aimed at Jack's honor. Cole rose, his movements clipped. "This board convenes to investigate allegations of falsified military service and the unauthorized wearing of United States military decorations by one Jack Miller, retired." His voice echoed off the paneled walls, crisp and commanding. "Evidence suggests multiple discrepancies in service records, including missing after-action reports and conflicting duty rosters." A ripple of curiosity moved through the crowd. Someone in the back stifled a laugh. Cole opened the top folder and continued. "Mr. Miller, you claim to have earned the Silver Star during Operation Iron Veil in 1970. Yet no documentation of such an operation exists in Marine archives. The Bronze Star citation attached to your file lacks a commanding officer's signature, and the medical records required for a Purple Heart, nowhere to be found." He closed the folder with a decisive snap. "Do you deny that these medals were obtained under false pretenses?" From the second row, a sergeant whispered just loud enough to carry. "He's cooked. Bet he cracks in 5 minutes." Jack inhaled slowly, the way he had on countless night watches when silence meant survival. His voice, when it came, was steady and unhurried. "I earned every medal you see, but not every mission left a trail of paperwork." Cole tilted his head, the faintest smirk tugging at his lips. "How convenient." Several Marines chuckled. The sound was small but sharp, like gravel under a boot. Major Davis lifted a hand for quiet, his eyes narrowing at the gallery before turning back to Jack. "Mr. Miller, we require verifiable proof. Without it, the integrity of our award system is at stake." Jack met the Major's gaze. "Some things were never meant for public record, sir." Cole stepped closer, pacing like a prosecutor who sensed blood. "Mr. Miller, this is a formal proceeding. Hearsay and vague statements will not suffice. If you cannot produce evidence, this board will have no choice but to recommend federal charges for stolen valor." The words hung heavy in the room. A few Marines shifted in their seats, savoring the spectacle. One young private leaned to his friend and whispered, "Grandpa's going down." They both snickered. Jack's eyes flicked toward them for a fraction of a second, just enough to let them know he'd heard, then returned to the officers in front of him. He stood as still as a sentry. Cole pressed on. "Perhaps age has made you careless, Mr. Miller." Maybe you thought no one would bother to check an old man's claims, but we will not allow the uniform to be disrespected by false heroes. The captain's words sliced through the room, each syllable deliberate. Major Davis cleared his throat, the gavel poised in his hand. Unless you can provide immediate corroboration, we will proceed to deliberation. The whispers grew louder. A corporal in the back gave a low whistle, as though the verdict were already decided. Jack did not flinch. He had endured the chaos of combat, the uncertainty of missions that were never supposed to exist. A few jeers and a room full of doubters could not shake the core of who he was. Still, he felt the sting, not for himself, but for the uniform he wore and the brothers who had never come home. He took one more measured breath and said nothing. The gavel's sharp crack echoed through the chamber, and the gallery quieted, but only for a moment. The hush carried a current of anticipation, like Marines crouched in darkness, waiting for a flare to burst. Captain Ryan Cole stood again, eyes narrowed, voice clipped. "Mr. Miller, this board will give you every opportunity to clarify your record, but continued evasion only strengthens the charge of stolen valor." He tapped the stack of folders with a single finger. "Let's revisit the inconsistencies." He opened a second file, the paper edges whispering like a knife being drawn. "Here," he said, holding up a faded duty roster. "Your name appears on a logistics manifest for Okinawa, while the medal citation claims you were deep in Cambodia. Explain that Jack Miller remained at parade rest, hands clasped behind his back." His voice was low, almost conversational. "I was in Cambodia. That manifest was written to keep people guessing. It worked." Cole gave a thin smile, more a baring of teeth. "A convenient story when documentation fails, wouldn't you agree?" From the benches came a muffled laugh. Someone muttered, "Grandpa's got an answer for everything." Major Davis rapped the gavel again. "Quiet." Cole ignored the interruption. "Mr. Miller, we also uncovered discrepancies in your medical file. No official record of combat wounds, yet you display a Purple Heart. How does a Marine earn such a decoration without so much as a corpsman's note?" Jack's gaze did not waver. "Because some missions were never meant to exist on paper. We patched ourselves up and moved on." A corporal leaned toward his buddy. "Yeah, patched himself up with a Band-Aid." Snickers rippled across the gallery. The disrespect scraped like sand in Jack's ears. Still he stood motionless, shoulders squared, boots aligned. Years of discipline held him steady. Cole's tone sharpened. "You expect this board to believe that entire operations worthy of the nation's highest combat medals, left not a single authorized report. No commanding officer, no signature, no evidence except your word." "I expect nothing," Jack said quietly. "But my word is all I have, and it's never failed a fellow Marine." The words hung there, calm but immovable. For a heartbeat, even the hecklers fell silent. Major Davis shifted in his seat, brows drawn. "Captain, continue." Cole nodded curtly. "Very well. We have testimony from 2 retired officers who served in adjacent units. Neither recalls your presence in theater during the dates in question." Jack tilted his head slightly. "They wouldn't. We weren't supposed to be seen." Cole snapped the folder shut and stepped closer, boots striking the floor with deliberate force. "This isn't a spy novel, Mr. Miller. It's a legal inquiry. If you cannot substantiate your claims, the board will recommend federal charges. Penalties include forfeiture of benefits, fines, and imprisonment." The word imprisonment hissed through the gallery like a sudden wind. Some Marines straightened in their seats, others smirked at the thought of the old man in cuffs. A young lance corporal in the back called out, "Hope they've got a cell with a rocking chair." Laughter flared before Major Davis slammed the gavel so hard the sound rattled the windows. Enough! The major barked, eyes like steel. This is a formal proceeding. One more outburst, and I will clear this room. The laughter died, but the sneers remained. Jack could feel them like static on his skin. Cole exhaled slowly, regaining his composure. Mr. Miller, this board is prepared to deliberate. If you have any final statement, now is the time. The room stilled. Even the hum of the fluorescent lights seemed to fade. Jack drew a breath, the kind taken before a long swim in dark water. I served my country. I carried out missions your files will never show. Men I loved died beside me so others could come home. If the record is missing, it is because it was meant to be. I will not dishonor their memory by speaking what was sworn to silence. His words were plain, but they landed like heavy rounds. For an instant, the young Marines who had mocked him shifted uneasily. Cole's jaw tightened. No documentation, no witnesses, no corroboration. This board cannot base its decision on sentiment. He turned toward Major Davis. Sir, I recommend immediate deliberation. Davis nodded gravely. Proceedings will recess for... A deep metallic clunk interrupted him, the unmistakable sound of the heavy double doors at the back of the room unlocking. Every head turned. The doors began to swing open. The heavy doors eased open with a slow, metallic groan, a sound that cut through the hush like a warning. Footsteps followed, steady, deliberate, each one landing with the confidence of authority earned, not borrowed. The Marines in the gallery turned first, then instinctively snapped to their feet. The shuffle of chairs against the tile became a single motion of discipline. Even the most defiant lance corporal straightened, eyes wide. Through the doorway strode a tall figure in immaculate dress blues, the silver stars on each shoulder gleaming beneath the overhead lights. A 3-star Marine general. His presence alone carried the weight of a thunderclap. Major Davis shot up from his chair. Attention on deck! The entire room obeyed, the air suddenly charged. Only Jack Miller remained still, because he was already at attention. The general's eyes swept the chamber before fixing on the man at the center table. Sergeant Major Miller, he said, voice like distant artillery. It's been too long. A ripple of confusion crossed the room. The captain who had led the accusation blinked hard. Jack's answer was calm, respectful. General Lewis. General Mark Lewis advanced toward the panel, boots striking the floor in perfect cadence. He stopped beside Jack, his posture commanding without effort. Major Davis recovered first. General Lewis, this is an unscheduled appearance. I'm aware, the general replied. I received word of this hearing only this morning. I came as soon as I could. Captain Ryan Cole stiffened, uncertain. General, this is a formal review of Sergeant Major Miller's service record. If you have relevant information, it must be submitted through proper channels. Lewis cut him off with a glance sharp enough to silence a drill field. Captain, when a Marine's honor is questioned, and I hold the proof of his valor, I will not wait for paperwork. The room went still again. Lewis produced a sealed leather folio, worn but meticulously kept. He placed it on the panel table and unlatched the clasp. Inside lay documents stamped with the highest classifications, edges frayed by years of careful handling. These are mission logs from Operation Night Watch, he said. Declassified only last month. Sergeant Major Miller was my right hand during those operations. Operations so sensitive, they were erased from every visible record. If you doubt his medals, doubt them no longer. Cole leaned forward, scanning the top sheet. His eyes flicked across signatures, coordinates, and dates that matched every contested citation. His voice faltered. These bear your personal signature, General. They do, Lewis confirmed. and the signatures of 2 former commandants. Missions in Cambodia, Laos, and regions we still won't name. Miller executed everyone with courage that saved lives, including mine. The younger Marines who had snickered only minutes earlier now looked stricken. One corporal's jaw literally dropped. Lewis turned toward Jack. Your actions under fire earned not just medals, but the gratitude of Marines who came home because you refused to leave them behind. I will testify to that before any board, any court, anywhere. For a heartbeat, the only sound was the low buzz of the lights. Major Davis cleared his throat, voice more respectful than it had been all day. Captain Cole, do you have any rebuttal? Cole hesitated, the weight of the evidence crushing whatever doubt he'd carried. Finally, he closed the folder and stepped back. No, sir, Davis nodded solemnly. Then this board finds no grounds to challenge Sergeant Major Jack Miller's record. All charges are dismissed. A soft rustle swept the gallery as Marines straightened, realization dawning. Then slowly they began to applaud. First a few, then the entire room, the sound rising like surf against stone. General Lewis turned to Jack, eyes bright with something deeper than protocol. With deliberate precision, he raised his right hand in salute. Jack returned it, his movements crisp despite the years in his shoulders. The general's voice carried across the chamber. Marines, remember what you've witnessed. Honor is not in the paperwork. It lives in the man. The applause became thunder. Even those who had mocked the old veteran now stood ramrod straight, respect written across their faces. Jack allowed himself the faintest of smiles, a quiet victory, nothing boastful. He glanced toward the young Marines, the ones who had laughed loudest. They met his gaze and, almost as one, lowered their eyes. General Lewis leaned closer, speaking just for Jack. I told you, old friend, the world may forget our battles, but Marines never forget their own. Jack nodded once. And I told you, sir, I never needed the world to remember. Just the Corps. The 2 men stood together as the clapping rolled on, a sound less of celebration than of atonement. When the applause finally ebbed, the hearing room settled into a reverent hush. The young Marines remained standing, their faces a mixture of awe and shame. A few exchanged glances, as if silently asking each other how they could have doubted the man before them. Major Davis straightened the stack of papers on the panel table, suddenly meticulous. Sergeant Major Miller, he said, his tone transformed. On behalf of this board, I extend our formal apology. Your record stands unchallenged, and your service remains exemplary. Jack inclined his head slightly, the gesture neither boastful nor bitter. Thank you, Major. Apology accepted. No victory grin crossed his face. Instead, he looked down at the rows of ribbons on his jacket, the faint scuffs on each one carrying memories far heavier than metal or cloth. Captain Ryan Cole, who only an hour ago had read accusations with sharp certainty, stepped forward. His voice was low, almost contrite. Sergeant Major, I owe you a personal apology. I was tasked to find the truth, but I let assumptions guide me. I'm sorry. Jack studied the young officer's eyes, searching not for fear, but for sincerity. You did your duty, Captain, he replied evenly. Never apologize for doing what you believe protects the Corps. Just remember, paperwork isn't the whole story. Men carry the rest. Cole gave a stiff nod, gratitude mingling with respect. General Lewis remained at Jack's side, a quiet sentinel. He spoke so the room could hear, his voice carrying the authority of decades. This Marine taught me lessons I still lean on. Courage, patience, and the knowledge that honor isn't something anyone can hand you or take away. It's lived every day in choices no one may ever see. The words hung in the air, sinking deep into the assembled ranks. Jack exhaled, the years seeming to ease from his shoulders. He removed his cover and held it at his side, fingers brushing the worn brim. In that small movement lay a lifetime of campaigns, friendships, and losses. A young lance corporal in the front row hesitated, then raised his hand in a sharp salute. Another followed, then another. Within seconds, every Marine in the gallery stood at attention, right hands to brows, a silent formation of respect. Jack returned the salute once, slow, deliberate, complete. The gesture said everything words could not. General Lewis gave a final nod to the board and turned toward the exit. Jack followed beside him, their footsteps in perfect rhythm, the echo of old comradeship filling the hallway beyond. Outside, the corridor stretched long and bright. The distant clatter of boots and low murmur of bass life filtered in, ordinary sounds that suddenly felt weighty with meaning. Lewis broke the silence first. "Jack, you could have fought this months ago. Letters, calls, lawyers. Why wait until the last possible moment?" Jack's smile was faint but sure. "Because sometimes you let the storm pass before you move." A Marine knows when to act and when to hold his ground. Lewis chuckled, the sound carrying a note of admiration. Still teaching lessons. They stepped out into the cool evening air. The flag on the parade field snapped sharply in the breeze, colors bright against the dimming sky. For a while they stood together, two veterans of different eras sharing the quiet. No audience now, no courtroom tension, only the bond of service that needed no explanation. At last, Lewis clasped Jack's shoulder. "Take care of yourself, Sergeant Major. The Corps owes you more than it can ever repay." Jack met the general's gaze, steady and calm. "The Corps already paid me in full, sir. Every Marine who came home, that's the only currency that matters." They exchanged a final salute, crisp and unwavering. Lewis turned toward headquarters, his figure soon blending into the twilight. Jack remained a moment longer, eyes on the flag as it lowered for evening colors. Memories flickered behind his gaze, jungles and deserts, comrades lost and saved, the long, quiet marches no medal could capture. He placed his cover back on, squared his shoulders, and started toward the base gate. As he walked, young Marines along the path stepped aside instinctively, some offering quiet nods, others standing a little straighter as he passed. They had heard the story by now, whispered from one to another. "That's Sergeant Major Jack Miller." The board tried to strip his honor. A three-star general came to set it right. Jack neither sought nor avoided their attention. He simply moved forward, the steady pace of a Marine who had nothing left to prove. At the gate, the sentry snapped to attention. "Good evening, Sergeant Major." Jack returned a small salute and crossed into the fading light, the base behind him alive with the respect he had quietly reclaimed.